Could there be a full and complete audit of the United States gold reserves? Yes, it could actually happen. But what is being proposed is a whole lot more than just that. I'll explain why in this video as we explore. There's actually two things that are being proposed in this legislation that has been submitted to audit the nation's gold reserves that are actually quite amazing. I'm going to be referencing an article from the Sound Money Defense League on what is being proposed by a U.S. senator. This is a big deal, folks. It doesn't happen very often. But we can be our own central bank, and we can have our own gold reserves. The good folks at Summit Metals, well, they have gold and silver and platinum as well. Next time you are in the market to buy your precious metals, check out Summit Metals. Link is in the description below, and experience their great customer service for yourself as you elevate your wealth. As U.S. debt soars and foreign central banks stockpile gold, a U.S. senator has just introduced a bill to require the first comprehensive audit of America's gold reserves in decades. Sponsored by Senator Mike Lee from Utah, the Gold Reserve Transparency Act will require full assay, inventory, and audit of all the United States gold holdings, not just those in Fort Knox, by the way, along with an upgrade in the purity of the gold so that it meets global market standards. That is the kicker here, folks, which means that we're going to have to probably melt down many of those gold bars in order to get them refined to meet good delivery standards. That is an even bigger deal, I think. And not only that, but something else that is pretty amazing about this legislation. Well, the first part is that it is a sitting U.S. senator that has proposed it. You don't see that very often. In fact, I can't remember of any other time. Maybe Rand Paul has done it in the past, but this is a pretty big and comprehensive piece of legislation. The measure will also require full disclosure of all transactions involving America's gold. That's a big deal as well, including any purchases, sales, loans, pledges, leases, swaps, and other encumbrances dating back 50 years. Such activities have never been publicly disclosed, and they should have been. There's a lot of secrecy, and this is why many people are certainly questioning whether or not we actually have the gold, and the lack of transparency. And especially after, the last visit to those gold vaults has really been shrouded in secrecy with essentially Xerox photocopies of pictures that were taken inside the vaults. It has a lot of people questioning. That was back in 2017 during Trump's first administration. Now, for over half a century, there has not been a comprehensive audit of America's gold reserves. Americans should know whether their literal national treasure is safe and accurately accounted for, according to Mike Lee. That means passing the Gold Reserve Transparency Act, opening Fort Knox U.S. Mint facilities and the Federal Reserve Bank of New York to an audit, and then making the results public. He said in a press release that listed individuals and groups in support of the measure, including Money Metals Exchange and Sound Money Defense League, former Federal Reserve Board nominee and Independent Institute Senior Fellow Judy Shelton, Club for Growth, and the Gold Antitrust Action Committee. The U.S. government's poor stewardship of America's gold reserves wouldn't pass muster in the private sector and has undermined confidence. Indeed, that is the case, according to Stephen Gleason. Even if a credible audit, inventory, assay, and accounting has been conducted decades ago, proper auditing is an ongoing process, and that leads to the second part of this. It's never a one-and-done affair, continued Gleason, whose company operates a maximum security gold and silver vault in Idaho. And that's twice the size of the U.S. Bullion Depository in Fort Knox. The gold audit bill comes in an environment where some nations are growing concerned about their gold reserves stored in the United States, or who prefer to hold their gold domestically. For example, leaders in Germany are calling for repatriation of its gold held and the custody of the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. And that stems back to, accusations of rehypothecation of their gold that's been taken and remelted down and then placed back. gold that has been essentially kind of leased out, and they've got it back in a different form. Former Congressman Ron Paul said the Federal Reserve and Treasury should not be permitted to operate in secrecy, especially when it comes to the most important monetary asset on the planet, gold. Restoring trust as to America's gold holdings is more important than ever when foreign central banks are scrambling to stockpile gold at incredible rates. An inquiry into America's sound money stockpile is more relevant than ever given an inflationary environment where more than $38 trillion in U.S. federal debt looms large, and given that many central banks have been accumulating gold at record pace over the past few years. Now, J.P. Cortez, who's executive director of the Sound Money Defense League, said that now is the time for transparency surrounding America's gold, as gold is the ultimate form of money recognized the world over. Safeguarding the U.S. Treasury's Department holdings of the only money mentioned in the U.S. Constitution is very much a national security issue. And I'll take it a step further. The gold essentially really is active money between central banks. We're seeing that play out as it's being traded, as it's being utilized, and it's being purchased and held by these central banks around the world. And in April 2019, the Bank of International Settlements, who is the central bank of central bankers, delegated gold to be a Tier 1 asset, putting it equal to and on par with, indeed, the dollar. And, in fact, many people do not, in fact, the vast majority of people that listen to this video and channel do not believe we actually have the gold there. So, in reality, it does need to be shown. And we remember back in the early days of the Trump presidency this time around, and earlier this year, there was a call to actually visit and tour the vault at Fort Knox. We wanted to see the gold. That was initiated by one Elon Musk, and the president agreed. And of course, then that there was a rift between the two gentlemen, and now we have not heard anything about that again. But nonetheless, a thorough audit is really needed, more so than an actual tour, although that would be neat to see. But only a thorough audit, not a public relations stunt such as a live walkthrough as Elon Musk and others propose, will suffice, according to J.P. Cortez. The situation requires far more than a fun one-day field trip by politicians to Fort Knox, West Point, and other U.S. Treasury vaults, although I will take that. Better that than nothing at all, and it would bring attention to the gold. I think that is actually very important. It should not be discounted, but a full audit is definitely what we need. To fulfill their obligations under the Gold Reserve Transparency Act, the Government Accountability Office and external independent auditors would gain access to any depository or any other public-private depositories where gold reserves are kept, as well as related records. So that is something that is even more thorough there in this audit process. And it's expected to take up to a year to complete. And here is the kicker. Here's the other thing that I think is an even bigger deal, other than, actually recasting those bars and purifying them and refining them down to 4 nines or to 3 nines pure, because in all actuality, the gold that is stored there is about 90% gold melted coins due to the 1933 collection of private gold. The good delivery standard requires purity of 99.5% or higher. And that's many of the Fort Knox bars, particularly those of the era when citizens had to turn to gold coins, did not meet that purity. Some of these bars may be different. The impurity, lower purity gold melt bars are the reason that they're not universally accepted in the global marketplace. This means that there will be much more liquid in this case. So this is something. So that this will be done. This process is expected to take up to a year to complete and would be repeated every 5 years. I'm so glad that the senator has made that proposal as well here. Make it a recurring theme and a reoccurring thing that occurs every 5 years. Senator Lee's new bill includes a process and timeline for refining America's gold so that it meets good delivery standards and is required by the global marketplace. Obviously, that would only need to be done one time, but any new gold added would obviously need to meet that standard. It would be. These are essentially 400-ounce gold bars. That's the largest of the gold good delivery standard here. The new bill would include a process and timeline for refining America's gold so that it meets that standard. Most U.S. gold holdings are in the form of impure coin melt bars of about 90%, as we've talked about here. And a lot of that was from, taking $20 gold coins and melting them down into those bars. Immediately before devaluating the dollar, the resetting of the gold exchange rate to $35 per ounce occurred in the early days. Now it's $42.22 is the official book value of gold. Cortez concluded, while we do not desire for the U.S. to divest any of the portion of its gold position, it's vital that America's gold be fully liquid and universally accepted given the asset's strategic importance. Exactly right. Now, he's been a long-time leader on issues related to sound money, Senator Lee has, and so it's quite exciting to see this. We have also seen others that have had similar bills in the House, but this is a big deal in the Senate. In the House, Thomas Massie, Warren Davidson, Addison McDowell, and Troy Nils recently introduced a similar version in the House. If they could take these and conflate and consolidate these bills together, I think that would be a good thing. And now is the time to do it while there's a Republican majority in the House and Senate. But my guess is maybe even some Democrats would come aboard and vote for this legislation. We'll see what happens, but very interesting and fascinating and very important news. So contact your senators, contact your House members, and let them know that you are for this transparency and to get the audit done with America's gold reserves. Hope you found this video informative, insightful, and educational. Would like to extend a multitude of gratitude to each and every one of you for taking the time to watch and encourage you to please rate, share, comment, and subscribe.